Hello and welcome everyone to the Fall In Podcast, and we have a special episode here for you today. I do believe we have a certain Derle Parmer. Is that correct, Daryl?
Yeah, Derle Parmer.
Yeah, definitely the most interesting way to say that I've ever heard. I've never heard that last name. I've heard Palmer before. What's the origins of that name? I'm sorry to get right into it, but
Yeah, no, it's common in my family. They I guess it's I looked it up.
I would hope
It's
so.
a
It's common in your family.
I looked it up. It's a spinoff of Palmer. And a palmer used to be an individual who went out and collected palms for roofs, and so it's a spinoff of that. But yeah, it's common in my family.
I would hope so. I mean, in your family. I mean, but man, it's great to meet you for sure. I mean, welcome to Fall In. We're going to be getting around the campfire here and maybe telling us some stories here and maybe talking about your service a little bit. I know you were in the army. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. When did you join? What was boot camp like? What were the circumstances as to why you joined, kind of too?
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
think it probably had something to do with the police, if I got it.
Oh no, I'll
no,
definitely interject with some relevant information. Can't wait to get into this.
I was smart enough to never get caught. I would just say that. And I'm definitely not a saint, but I'm from Panama City, Florida, born and raised down there in Panama City. And after high school, I went to college for a couple of years, but I realized college wasn't really for me. So I was originally studying civil engineering, and um, and I realized that shortly after I got started, I didn't have the aptitude for the math. So rather than drop out, I started changed my major unofficially from civil engineering to billiards, and I shot pool at a damn student center all the time. And After 2 years of straight full time student, I only had 27 credit hours, and I was leaving school one day to go to
Overachieving.
work. Yeah, I was overachieving. But I left class, or I left the student center one day to go to work, and on the way, I had never ever thought about going in the military. My daddy was a World War II veteran from he was a Seabee in World War II over in the Philippines. My brother was a Vietnam vet, and I was a baby of the family. And So here it is, 1988. I'm driving by the recruiter's office and never had thought about it before. And I slammed on the brakes and pulled in and walked in. And I grabbed a brochure off the desk sitting right there at the entrance, and it was the old brochure with a guy in a soft cap, and it had he was walking through the swamp with an M16 in his hand, and it said Ranger on top. And the guy from behind me in uniform said, "Can we help you?" I turned around and showed him that pamphlet, and I said, "Yeah, I want to do that on a whim. I just joined the army on a whim." So I went home, told my daddy, and that was June of 1988, and I said, "Daddy, I love you to death, but I'm tired of living out of your back pocket. I want to go do something else of my own." And there it was on June 16th, 1988. I joined the army and went to basic training. So it was a no plan whatsoever, just to do it at all. I just went and did it.
That's very crazy that you just all of a sudden on a whim decided to walk into the recruiter's office, not ever thinking about it. Because I mean, there's a lot of guys I went to high school with that were like, "Oh, I'm going to join the Marines." Like the whole time they were in high school, they were talking about how they were going to join the military, but you didn't even have an inkling that you would do that, and you just all of a sudden,
Yeah.
what was the thought? I mean, do you remember the exact thought, like why you went in that office?
Well, like I said, I was living at home. Daddy was, paying for everything. All I had to do was go to school. That's all I needed to do was go to school. I had a job to give me some pocket change and pay for my car that my daddy bought years before. But it was one of those things where knowing that they had been in the military, like I said, Daddy was in World War II and Bubba was in. My brother was in Vietnam, but I knew what they had done, but I'd never actually thought about me doing it. And then it was one of those things where I knew I had to go do something on my own, and I had to do it that way, or it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Well, I mean, how was the difference though? Because I mean, like you said, you were just living at home, kind of going to school was your responsibility, and then going into basic training. I mean, that had to be. I've asked this question a lot, to Big Al and also other guests we've had. What was the culture shock kind of going into that?
Well, being that my dad was in the military and my brother as well, so to me it wasn't much of a culture shock as far as doing what you're told. I was raised to when they say do it, you do it. I had my little moments where I bowed up, and Daddy had to straighten me out a couple times, but basically it was one of those where I knew when they said to jump, ask how high. If they said shit, I asked what color. I understood that. So that
You can
right there.
control that. You can control that. Wait a second. We got to go back to that. You can control that color.
That's what you tell them.
It's all about the input.
So, but no, it wasn't that much of a culture shock. What the hard part was for me, was I was always physical and everything, but I was 100. I made weight. I made the minimum weight by like 2 pounds. I was 152 pounds when I went in the Army. For my height, I was barely able to go, and I wasn't the strongest guy in the world, but to me it was the physical part. But that I kind of fell in on that fairly easily. Other than that, everything just kind of went. All you got to do is get up when they tell you to get up, stand in formation when they tell you to stand in formation, and just do what the hell you're told, and that's about it. So for me, it wasn't that big of an issue. The hard part for me was later on, after I got to my first unit, realizing that now I'm stuck with these guys every single day, all day long. I'd had a job before that working at Pepsi, where I'm working with the same guys, but we're all out across town doing our own thing, and we only come back to work. We only see each other when we're there the first thing in the morning, and then when we go home in the evening. Other than that, we were out doing our own thing. So, but now I'm in a job where I've got to sit in the same exact shop, doing the same exact thing with the same guys every day for 2 years at a time here. When in between duty station changes. So to me, it was getting used to working with the same people every day, day in and day out.
So that was difficult. Like, in what way was it? Just like maybe butting heads with other guys that you just didn't really know very well?
Yeah, I'm an Al can confirm it. I'm kind of a hard head. So if there's something that kind of needs to be said, I'll pick and choose the right time to say it. But when it's got to be said, you're definitely going to just step up and say what's got to be said. And then that you run across a bunch of other people out there that are feeling the same exact way. So it's one of those things where you just got to feel everything out and find out how you're going to fit in. I figured it out, and I realized after about my first year that I wasn't going to stay in the Army. It just wasn't for me.
Oh, so it got to the point to where you were getting ready to actually leave.
Well, no, I still had time left. When I signed up, it was 5 year commitment. So here I am in Germany in 1988. I got there November 88, and within a year, I realized I'm not staying in the Army. I'm gonna get out when my time's up. I'm getting out. And I had that idea that that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm gonna go back to work. I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna get me a job with Pepsi, and I'm gonna work on a truck. Driving around fixing Pepsi machines around Panama City for the rest of my life, as far as I'm concerned. I just didn't want to stay in the Army. It wasn't for me.
Now, I'm assuming that something changed. Now, what exactly happened that made you decide to, I'm gonna stick with it?
Yeah, I can tell you the God's honest truth, because I've said this before, time and time again. That moment that changed me was I left Germany after we went to Desert Storm, came back, and I went to Fort Drum, New York from Germany.
I'm the glory.
Yeah, here you go. And I went to Fort Drum, New York, 1991, in June of 91, and I met this guy named PFC Nixon. And that's where I met Al the very first time.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't realize he's talking about Big Al here. Alfonso Nixon.
Yep.
Yeah, so that tells you how long Derle and I have known each other.
Just for a couple of days, right, Al?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, brother. But no, I got there, and I had our platoon sergeant was Sergeant First Class Paris de Leon. But I got there,
Like
and
Ponce
this
de
guy,
Leon, huh?
yeah, but I got there, and this guy was my previous platoon sergeants. Just I really didn't see the way that the Army was supposed to work, and they really kind of did things different. When I got there to Fort Drum, Sergeant First Class Patrice De Leon was my platoon sergeant, and the way he did things was just, I liked it a lot. And I said, and he put me in charge because I was the highest ranking hydraulics guy. I was a hydraulics repairman. It's hydraulics is what most people would call it, but it's I was a senior. I was a promotable hydraulics guy when I got there. So there was no NCOs in the shop. So he put me in charge of the shop and actually let me run the shop. And he treated me like an NCO because that's basically the position I was filling.
Over Hastings.
That's a fact. Mike Hastings. Yep, sure was. So and Mike was senior to me, but he wasn't promotable. Hastings was senior to me, but he wasn't promotable. So Sergeant Patrice De Leon said, "Parmer, you're in charge," and he treated me like an NCO, and I just started learning everything that I needed to be able to run the shop. That's all I focused on, and I started to enjoy it. And my time came up for reenlistment, and Hastings had just reenlisted for a bonus. Al had already left. This is almost 2 years later. Al had already gone to Germany. Did you go to Germany, right, Al?
Roger that. Yep.
Yeah. So this is a couple years later now. Hastings had just reenlisted for a bonus, and it was a 3 alpha bonus. No, he got a 4 alpha bonus. And then my turn popped up the next month. My window opened, but mine had changed to a 3 alpha bonus. Well, the way the 3 alpha works is it's your base pay times that multiplier. So it was my base pay times 3, and then you pay the taxes on top of that. But to me, I was a single guy, never been married, no kids yet, and I, no kids to this day. But back then, I didn't have any kids. I was a single guy, and $10,000 was my take-home pay. I said, you know what? I'm enjoying the Army a lot more now. Let me sign my name, raise my right hand, and said I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Now, let me butt in on that. I'd never, ever received a bonus.
Nope. That was my only one. I got lucky, man.
You probably never deserved one, though, Top.
Oh, no.
Look up.
Many of them.
From the shadows.
Yeah, from the shadows, I do believe we have Chad joining us. How you doing, Chad?
Oh, Chad, what's up, Bubba?
Hey, Sergeant Major, how you doing?
I'm doing good, boss. What you up to, bub?
Hanging out, listening to you guys.
Oh, by gosh, man, by gosh. But yeah, that was it. Fort Drum there, and I reenlisted there, but I reenlisted to go to Fort Bragg. I wanted to go to airborne school and jump out of planes. So that was being from Panama City, Florida, and then they sent my butt to Fort Drum, New York. Mind you, at this time I'm about 155 pounds, and I'm not a cold-natured person. So if I have to wear sleeves, I'm not happy.
You're born in Florida. I mean, it's Florida. I mean, you don't go to New York and feel like, man, this is comfortable.
That is a fact. So they sent my butt there, and I was like, I went to skiing and did all the stuff you're supposed to do up there, and I had a good time. It was pretty good. Met a lot of good people. Al was only there for a few months. I got there in June. Al, when did you leave?
I left there in December because I had a breach of contract, which got me out of there, faster. Because most people go to Drum, they're kind of stuck there, but the Army violated my contract, so they had to get me out of there quick.
Okay, gotcha. I forgot about that. But so I'd only seen Al, I've known Al for just a few months. Really didn't really know him. We were just in the same platoon together. I'll tell you this story about Al. The way I met Al, we were in a SPAMs. The other guys know what a SPAM is. Brian, a SPAM is a shelter portable air mobile. Imagine the Connex is the semi-trailers you see rolling down the road, those 40-foot semi-trailers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cut that sucker in half and make it 20 foot long. It's 19 foot 6 inches to be exact. But make it 20-footer, and then one side of it, it opens up and expands out on one side to double the width of it. So that's our shop. Each one of the different shops has a SPAM, and that's when we open it up, we move our equipment out, and that becomes our workshop. So I walk up in the SPAM up there because that's what we worked out of in the snow, because we didn't have an actual hangar shop that we were working.
It's like a NASCAR hauler in a way, though, because the way y'all kind of take the tools around, it's a mobile unit for tools, right? Kind of. like a mobile
Yeah.
workshop.
But it's nothing that nice. Yeah.
You know what I mean, though. It's like you walk up in it, you grab the tools out.
Well, you actually work in there. There's benches and chairs and desks and stuff like that. It depends on how that NCO sets it up. But I walk up in the spam, and they're taking me around to meet all the different all the different people in different shops, tell me who works where, and then I walk into the spam, and there's this young black guy sitting up on the stool there, and I mean he's young, but he's still a giant. Al's like, what are you, 6'4", 6'5"?
6'4".
6'4". So here he is, 18, 19 years old, and this guy, hey, this is Nixon. Hey, buddy, how you doing? My name's Parmer. And that right there is how me and Al met. But when he stood up was when it really dawned on you how big this man is. and Jack can tell you,
Big personality too.
Exactly. Al ain't petite.
No, in no way he's petite. Even when his personality, I tell you what, this guy's got personality dripping off of him.
He's got enough for about the whole state of Alabama right now. Guarantee that.
Yeah, you stick around. You're talking to my other brother Derle right now.
Yeah, and Al's going to be reserved. But if this podcast goes on long enough and we get a few drinks in this, you'll see the real Al.
Oh, I've met him.
Oh, good. Where'd y'all meet at?
Well, we didn't really meet. I'm just saying that, like, I've been in Discord hanging out with him, and he's been having quite a few drinks in him.
No, me and him and
Oh, I bet y'all have actually went out, like.
Oh yeah, we've been quite a few play. Well, going out and partying? No.
Yeah, that's what I kind of meant, like out to the bar or something and drinking some beers.
See, the difference is that we don't get to partake like that because we have to stay sober and ready so we can go do all of the dumbasses.
So you make it up for lost time now.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, but definitely very interesting, your story. You kind of talked about what your responsibilities were. Did you ever, go out? I know you said Desert Storm, that's kind of a trigger word for, combat and kind of things like that. Did you ever have to get into combat and have to deal with scenarios that were a little bit out of your comfort zone?
Well, being aviation, I'll tell it to you like this: being aviation, we don't kick indoors and shoot people in the face. Let's just put it that way. All right, so we're responsible as aviation maintainers. We're responsible to maintain the aircraft and ensure that it can be mission ready whenever they need it. So I'm on the flight line or in the shop or wherever, turning wrenches and keeping aircraft flying. And then once you become that supervisor, you're responsible for make sure that the guys under you are maintaining those aircraft. Now, are we kicking indoors and shooting people in the face? No, that's not what we do. We have a totally different mission. Every bit of it, everything that every MOS out there does, from a mechanic in the motor pool to a mechanic on the flight line to your human resources guys in the S1, those guys in the S2 that are pulling the intel, all the way down to the cook that's cooking the meals for us to make sure we can actually, to do our job. Everybody's doing their part. Are we doing that hard thing of actually engaging in direct combat with people? Typically, no. If the time ever comes, everybody's got that training to be able to do it. But our biggest thing that we have to deal with when we're out there on the flight line or in a deployed environment for an aviation guy, we're typically basically dealing with indirect fire, which is people shooting mortars and stuff at us and rockets. That's the thing that we typically have to deal with. Now, that doesn't mean that the guys that actually go out on the aircraft and fly with them, with those crew chiefs out there on the Black Hawks and the Chinooks, doesn't mean that they're not doing something out there. If it has to be done, by all means, they have all the weaponry that we need and the training to engage if they need to, and it does happen quite a bit. But myself, no, I've never been in direct combat with anybody on the ground.
But you said something about artillery being kind of a problem when you're doing your job and stuff like that. I mean, has there ever been any close calls of maybe something hitting close to kind of where you were, but kind of affecting you?
Well, yes, nearby quite a bit, quite a few times. We were at me and Al were at in Mosul during OIF, the first OIF. They kept shooting grenade or rockets and stuff at us over there. Had a couple mortars land up there and inside of our work area and everything. Over right in front of the TOC or the CP there, if I remember correctly, wasn't it, Al?
Yep. Also, you should tell them about, a lot of things happen back there too, Daryl. I would love for you to talk about the recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was talking about was there was if you go back and look it up, I believe it was it November of 2003.
Yes, sir.
I believe it was November 2003, and there was two Blackhawks that collided over Mosul. One of them was on a QRF mission. QRF is Quick Reaction Force. They had a team of some infantry guys out there. They were moving from point A to point B, and and then there was an R&R flight. Unfortunately, they were coming back from an R&R. And they collided over Mosul, and 17 casualties.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's largest. I believe I'm pretty sure that was the largest casualty, one-day casualty event during OIF. Don't quote me, but yeah, we had to recover the aircraft and some of the there was I had the aircraft that was on top of the two-story building. I was over there recovering that one, and but then the other aircraft that was suspended, it was stuck on top of was it 3 or 4-story building. They weren't able to recover all the guys off of that, so they went in there and had to recover those guys. But yeah, we've sometimes that's part of the mission. You have to go do what you got to do to basically clear the battlefield, get your guys off the battlefield, and then worry about yourself later, basically.
Now, you said so these two helicopters collided with one another. Was that just like a flight plan error?
Not really sure. I've read the reports and the different news articles. Not a guarantee on what happened there. There's a couple of reports saying that they saw I believe it said a smoke trail come up from the ground and hit one of the aircraft, maybe. But not certain. All I know is that they crashed over Mosul there, and then we had 17 casualties.
Man, that's sad, definitely, to have something like that happen, especially like you said, some of the guys coming, or were they coming from R&R or going to R&R?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty sure one of the aircraft, I believe, was coming from had a crew a load of packs.
Yeah, they were headed too. They were going to the Hook.
So they were going to go rest and kind of get maybe a little bit.
It was in country in R&R at the Hook, and that's where that aircraft was headed.
So those guys were literally going to probably rest and kind of relax a little bit in a little bit of a safer environment, and unfortunately, that happened.
Yep, absolutely. Terrible accident or incident, and a lot of people were affected by it. We had our and I was there. We were on that mission together, but we had our moment afterwards. The commander did the right thing, and Major John L. Smith. He was actually a really good commander. I was glad that he had everybody come in and sit down that was on the mission, and with the chaplain, and we talked through it, just to kind of just see how we were feeling, just make sure everybody there was no make sure nobody was having any issues, and I'm glad he did it. I had my moment there. It was the first time Al ever saw a tear fall out of my eye, and I said my piece, and then after it was over with, I was good to go. I basically man.
Did you know any of those guys?
No, I didn't know any of the guys personally. The aircraft was it 4 101 aircraft, Al?
Roger.
Yeah, it was 4th
Battalion and a 9th Battalion aircraft.
Oh, okay, 4th and 9th. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know any of them personally. But yeah, it's definitely something to not a memory you want to have, about having to go recovery. do
Yeah, for
recovery.
sure. And think about this too. I mean, I bet that what made it so difficult too was that you could have easily been on that helicopter. I mean, those, you guys had to go and on R&R and probably take flights to to a certain area.
Yeah, we were moving around the battlefield as well. Every now and then, because I went up to uh, was it K-Sun? What was that? What was the place where? Gummit. Where was battalion at? What was it at? Started with a Q. Was where they had the sulfur fire at.
Oh, Kiara West, Q West,
Q
West.
Yeah, we went back and forth to QS quite a few times, just to do different things with battalion and brigade up there. But yeah, I mean, you're moving around the battlefield. There's no telling what aircraft you're going to be on. So we have changed our tactics now.
Well, talking about that time though, Daryl. I actually started in Kuwait, drove all the way up to Mosul, and then we drove all the way back to Kuwait from Mosul. So I mean, we literally covered about as much of Iraq as anybody you could think of.
Well, yeah, we did it all the way up there. Convoy was at took us. I think it was 3 days to get there, but then I had to go back. I don't know if you remember. I had to go back. Commander said, "Hey, I need you to get a load of supplies back down to Kuwait." So they said, "Can you do it in 24 hours?" I said, "Well, yeah, we can do it. Just need to make sure we get the right trucks and the right people." And we did that. We did that trip all the way from Mosul, being Captain Stallings. We did that trip all the way from Mosul all the way back down to Kuwait. Christopher M. Stallings, and he's retired now, full bird colonel. But me and him did that convoy back down there to Kuwait in 24 hours, and the commander didn't think we could do it. I said, "Yeah, we can do it." And I hear you. I hadn't. I've only told this to a couple people. So we made the. I had bought a GPS before we deployed, and I learned how to use my handheld GPS and little Magellan.
And I did the same.
And I plugged a route. I told Captain Stallings, I said, "Hey, give me a map, and I'll plug a route for us." They gave us a couple of few things from S2 on approved routes, and I had those coordinates, and I had to plug in a couple of extra things on my GPS. I plugged everything in, and I rolled those maps up. Got my route set up, and I rolled those maps up, set them on my desk there in the shop, in my spam. Got up the next morning and hauled butt, and we got about an hour down the road, and I went, "Oh shit!" Left my maps in the spam. I had nothing but my GPS to get us there, and that was it. Lo and behold, the next day when we were that afternoon, we're rolling down the highway, and my GPS starts to malfunction, and I started stressing like you.
Well, I bet. I mean, because you had like literally probably a commanding officer sitting with you, and you're like, "I fucked up."
No, it's not like that though. It's more like the heaviness of having the entire party on your hand, and you're in Indian country. I mean, you got to think about this.
Oh yeah, I got you.
You're in a place where they don't like you. You don't know where you're at.
Like IEDs too probably were a concern. I know that was a big you always see that in the news stories about that was the one of the major dangers over there.
This was the early iterations of the IEDs, and they didn't have all the advancements.
They kill you deads.
Yeah, exactly. But the big thing was we stopped at a rest stop there at a refuel point, and I pulled my batteries out and swapped my batteries, thinking, okay, I'll switch them out, and that'll be good. And they still didn't work. And then I realized, okay, wait a minute, go get a different pack of batteries. These once I switched those out for a third set of batteries, now everything started working like a damn charm. Because it's so hot over there, the batteries were going bad. And thank God I had another pack of batteries stashed in my bag. I pulled those out, and we finished the whole entire route with my GPS. And then actually returned back, took the exact same route going back because I already had the breadcrumbs. I had the breadcrumbs already plugged in on my GPS, so follow it back. It got us there one time. We made it back the second time. But all right, here's one for you. talking about, you're in Indian territory. A gal said, we came back. Well, we went through this little town, um, and it's market day in this little town in Iraq. Excuse me. And it's market day, so we are literally bumper to bumper in our convoy. It's only 7 trucks. We're bumper to bumper in our convoy, and there's 500 people in the middle of the road in a market, and we're having to, ease our way through this crowd of people. And I'll never forget, we were doors off. We didn't have up armored Hummers. Remember, guys? But, so it's 120 degrees. I got doors off, and I've got my 9. I'm driving, and old Joshua Colburn. He's sitting over in the passenger seat with his M16. Yeah, we had M16s, and he's sitting over there with his M16, and I got my 9mm in my lap. I'm driving now, and this guy with doors off, this Iraqi civilian, stands there, probably arm's distance away, and I stop right there next to him, and he's about arm's distance away, and he looks at me and looks down at my pistol, and in as perfect English as you could imagine an Iraqi speaking, you don't need that here. Looked right at my gun, at my pistol, and said that. You don't need that here.
Really?
I swear to God, that's exactly what he said. Looked right at me and said,
well-educated Iraqi right there.
Yep. And when he said that, I looked right at him and I said, doesn't matter, because I don't know anybody here. And nobody messed with us. And then all of a sudden, with my truck, because we were the lead up there. And then all of a sudden, Captain Stallings comes over the radio and said, my call sign was Papa. And Captain Stallings comes over the radio and says, Papa, they're throwing rocks at us back here. Let's get out of here. And about that time is when a path opened up a little bit, and we were able to get a little bit of speed, and everybody kind of moved out of our way, and we got out of that damn city. But I'll never, ever forget that guy looking at me in damn near perfect English and said, don't need that here, when he was talking about my gun. So that's crazy. A lot of places didn't mind us being there. They preferred, what we could bring them as far as, a change of life compared to what, Saddam Hussein was giving them.
Yeah, but people will never understand the correlation between Iraq and Afghanistan just for that same reason. It just.
But you never know who you're dealing with, and that's the thing too, man. People in the United States that don't have a clue about what's going on in the world. It's sad to see how many are actually out there, and the way that America's thinking. It's just sad to see, because they don't understand what's really happening out there in the world. Everybody's complaining about the, I don't want to get political, but with all the people, when everybody starts complaining about, I'm not gonna say it. I'll just say that they don't have a clue what's going on in the world, because if you send them over to other places out there, and they go over there with the same attitude they got today, they're not gonna make it. I can tell you that right now. I'm not gonna get political. I'll just stop there.
Well, and I guess I hate to steal the thunder, but that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand either about, like, just operating in country. So you have the guys that are coming in and they're going through the schools and the training, and in that training they're telling them don't trust them and handle everything this way. You've been there for a while and you understand that you can't just kick the door in every day for a year. Because these people, you're going to communicate with them, and they live here. This is their home, So after a while, you lose that testosterone where you just all of them are bad, and you start to understand that, hey, yeah, some of them are good, and it's real funny because the time that you're leaving and the guys that are replacing you are coming in, they're coming in the same way you were a year ago, and but these people. are they have a rapport with you, and you're trying to tell these guys, hey, look, don't punch this dude in the face, he's cool.
Yeah.
But shut up, we know what we're doing. I mean, and it's like, okay, cowboy, carry on, but that's the thing that a lot of people don't even understand.
Yeah, that's definitely, I don't think, the right way to handle it. I mean, of course, you definitely want to be wary that someone's could be a hostile, but I mean, you're going to build it, like you said, a rapport with some of these people. And I've heard stories too. I mean, I don't know if you could kind of interject on this, but like of even sometimes you being saved by one of those locals, like that maybe are a little bit weighing on your side versus the whoever the insurgents is you guys are fighting.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
you
not.
got to take everything they say with a grain of salt, but for you always have to react on everything they tell you. You have to. You're always watching your own ass, but you have to react when they say that. Hey, listen, this guy over here is getting ready to get ready to attack tomorrow. You have to react to that, but you never know, is that guy just trying to throw you off, or is he telling you the truth? So yeah, Al's right. There's good and bad guys over there, man. That's fact.
Well, what I was kind of referring to is like, I don't know. This is a movie. Of course, they're going to be, kind of cinematic and, make it really cinematic and stuff.
We don't do movies. I mean, this is
I'm just saying it's supposed to be based on a real
Hollywood.
true story. I'm just saying, me as a curious party, that's what we're exposed to. That's what I'm, kind of saying. You know what I mean? We're exposed to what is in the movie, and you guys gotta give the realistic part of it, what it actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. Maverick would not have been able to pull off anything that he did because he's just Maverick. That's a Hollywood character. But the reality of it is, though, when we're out there, and people don't understand this. This is why I love our military, because we've got engineers, our officer corps, our enlisted corps. I mean, we go to places, and our whole motif is to make them better, than we found them. So, like, even in Kiara West, for example, they took the pool that was there, because there was this big Olympic freaking swimming pool there in the village, and they turned that into a source where they could actually convert water. And so for the first time in these people's lives, they actually had clean drinking water. I mean, so I mean, that's another thing that Americans don't understand. So when we're out there operating around the world, and you look at us guys like we're aviation guys. Well, I'll tell you, I am an aviation guy, but I've been about as up in the thick of it as anybody else has. And just the two guys on the phone heck, me and Derle went out and hog-tied a couple of fellows, right, Derle?
Yep, that's a fact.
So we're right up in the midst of it all the time, man. It is what it is. War is war. And there's no, you don't get to take a knee. There's no timeouts. There's no halftime. And there's no, oh, I'm not a participant. It doesn't work that way. It'll find you, even if in the form of something dropped on your head. When Chad and I were at Shank, we were the first unit there. And Darryl, I'm going to send this right back to you. You'll see hi. Darryl went back there as a command sergeant's major, and now tell him what happened when you were at Shank.
Fob Shank is called Rocket City. It's nicknamed Rocket City because we were there for they changed it now. We were only there for a 9-month tour. But in that 9 months, we had, I think it was 219, 220, I think it's 219, something like that. Just over 200 rockets shot at us in a 9-month period. Unfortunately, our advanced party for my battalion that we went over with, that took over there, two of our pilots they were living in a tent, and our tent city for our LSA, life support area, for our battalion, or task force at the time, was actually right in when they drew an overlay of where all the rockets were primarily hitting, because all they do is when they set the rocket up on a certain angle, on a certain number of sandbags at this location. They know if I do it from here, I got to aim it at that direction, and I got to set it up on this number of sandbags, and then they set the timer and run. It may go off 15 minutes later, it may go off an hour later. But that general heading direction that they aim it is in this what they know would be the center of the fob, and that center of that fob, when you put the overlay of where all the rockets hit, was the bullseye, was our LSA, where our tent city's at, for my battalion, and our task force, and unfortunately we lost two of our pilots to a direct hit on their tent as they were sleeping. They were flying nights, and they were sleeping during the day, and a rocket came in and direct hit on their tent, and we lost two heroes on that day, in April of 2013.
That's definitely terrible. That's what I mean. They were sleeping, so hopefully they didn't suffer. That's for sure. But still, definitely, unfortunate for that.
And that's the thing with the with Bob Shank. It's they call it Rocket City for a reason.
Yeah.
Well,
They-
I
they
can tell
let
you,
it-
I was there on Christmas Day in 2015, and we were taking mortars that day too. So we
Yeah.
got the hell out of Dodge. We ate our Christmas turkey in the aircraft flying back south.
Yeah, we also had another. We had quite a few injuries from another two rocket attacks. We sent two guys home with shrapnel. Thank God they were still alive, and we sent another guy home with had his arm just about blown off.
Oh,
He was
wow.
working out in the gym. That's how crazy it is. You don't never know when it's going to happen. Here it is, broad daylight, but they'll set that rocket up. And this one hit right next to the gym. And one of my Joes, he got severely injured, damn near blew his arm off. For all those guys that had work done to remove their shrapnel and fix his arm. I told the docs when we got to the to the hospital up there. I said, listen, those are my Joes. I'm going in there while you're in the OR with them. And sure enough, they gave me a mask and a hat and said, here, put this on, Sergeant Major, and just stand back out of the way. So I was in there with them when they were getting themselves fixed up. And then the worst one was, my Joe that I know his name. I'm not going to say his name out loud. But he fixed his arm. They only had one. What was it? One of the bone. It was almost completely broken, and there was only like one muscle holding his arm together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major.
Yes, sir.
So let me ask you this question as directly as I know how, because obviously we're doing this podcast for a reason. Let's talk mental health. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You yourself, being multi-combat veteran, very well decorated. How many years did you serve?
26 years.
Even?
26 years, 5 months, and 14 days.
Okay, there you go. That's the answer I was looking for. And being a sergeant major, that meant that you went to meetings that I didn't go to, and you knew things that I didn't know. So how are you, your peers, and your superiors doing? Have you talked to any of these guys about whatever the effects they're having or their mental health is having since they retired? Because no one goes in the Army and comes out better than they were. I mean, we all went through. I mean, I spent 18 plus years straight at Fort Campbell, with the exception of a 1 year deployment, which ended up in the Philippines. So I'm wanting to know from you directly is, if you did a buddy check, how's everybody doing?
Pretty damn good, I'll be honest. And I will also say that part of that is because of being aviation and not kicking indoors and shooting people in the face. But
Apache pilots, I mean,
well, that's what I was just fixing to say. But now on the side of the guys that are actually out there and actually shooting, because we were there in Shank, and our most lethal Apache gunner was a young female W-2. Let me tell you something. She was damn good at what she did. But I can only imagine, the things that they're having to do to deal with. But as far as our brothers out there that I specifically know, we're doing pretty good. A lot of us I should say, a few of us are actually stay in contact every now and then, and they're doing pretty good. But the big thing that everybody's got to remember about mental health and OIF and OEF has completely changed the way we deal with mental health in the Army, for the better, I will say. But the thing
you really think it? I mean, I guess what you said overall, yes, they're more in tune to the mental part of it. But
absolutely, yes. But the biggest thing that people have to remember is, and I've had my conversations with the doctors, but the biggest thing that I think people have got to remember is you have to be willing to talk about it. Because if you want to keep it bottled up and be the tough guy, knock yourself out, hero. you'll be falling out here pretty soon. And that's the way a lot of people deal with it. They just bottle it up. But if you're not willing to talk about it, you're going to have more problems. So that's
attribute. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Do you attribute your findings because you do sit down and take time and make those calls and maintain those relationships and connections?
Yes. And if you're not willing to make those calls, then Al and I have talked, and it's one of those things that you got to be willing to just open up and say what you're feeling. And that's what we're not a touchy-feely society in the Army. That's the thing about it, and people don't realize you've got to learn to get in touch with yourself and then be able to tell someone exactly how it's making you feel, to get your head clear. I retired in June of 2014. Well, I retired in October of 2014, but I actually signed out on terminal leave on my birthday at noon in June of 2014. And I told myself then, before I retired, hearing all the horror stories about people, the average lifespan of a retired Army guy, a retired soldier is 5 years. Remember that, guys?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah. So that was the thing back in the day. It's like, oh yeah, the average lifespan is 5 years after you retire. And I, hearing all that, I told myself that as hardcore as I thought I was, I said, I'm going to actually put the Army behind me. It'll be in my heart, but I'm going to put the Army behind me in my mind and actually realize I'm no longer in the Army, and I'm going to change the way I live, because I knew if I didn't, I would be that guy that would have all of the stress about why has my life changed so drastically, and I can't handle it. And I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah, honestly, I did think you were going to be that guy. I'm not. No disrespect, and I'm not trying to be funny, but you were a lifer. You were never married. You had no kids. You were married to the Army, and her children were your children, and that was just the way it was. So I do commend you for the fact that you have actually went to live a very normal life post-retirement.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Your kind of normal life now post-retirement. I mean, that's definitely something I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear, how you did acclimate to life as a civilian.
Yeah, and I tell you, it started as soon as I retired, because my dad, I was a baby to family. My daddy passed away when he was 91 and 2 days old. I left, signed out in June, and I took a couple of weeks. My dad had broke his hip a few months before that and was on recovery, hoping he was going to be able to recover. And I went home and I said, you know what? I'm going to go home and take care of my dad. I already had a interview lined up in Huntsville to take on a job over there. And I was like, yep, that's where I'm going. I was going to settle in Huntsville and just get me a job and be a contractor and be done with it.
I was getting ready to say you was at the Pepsi plant. Like you were talking about, like when you were like, oh, I'll just spend 5 years, get out and go to work for Pepsi. Like, yeah, 20 years later, you go work for Pepsi.
Yep. That's the best job. And I'll tell you, truth too, that was the best job I ever had, because I saw somebody different every day. But when I retired, though, I was like, Daddy needs me. I'm going to go home. I can do it. I sat at home with Daddy and took care of him 24/7. My brother lived down the street. My sister lived around the street and down the corner. And they come over and give me breaks because they were taking care of him for a few months before I got there, before I retired. So I said, I'll come home and help out. And I went right back in the house. I left when I went in the Army, and sleeping in the same bedroom, and took care of Daddy for 7 great months. I did. I got 7 awesome months with my daddy, and got to learn a lot about him, that things that I didn't know. And then I get to see I saw the change of life. And what I mean by that is it's different when you watch someone else realize their own mortality. You can see that they realize that I'm not going to be here for much longer, and you can see the change. But it was great to be able to spend that time with him for 7 good months, and then after that, I I started kind of, I was like, I'm retired. Daddy's passed. It's just me here at the house. I'm going to go and actually be retired. So I did some traveling down here in South Florida, visited with some old friends from college that I've still stayed in contact with the entire time, and came down here to go to Key West with them, and ran into this beautiful young lady that I met in Korea way back when.
Wow, that's a small world right there.
We had, every now and then, every year or so, we just kind of like, hey, how you doing? And that was it. But ran into her, and she said, hey, let's get drinks. And I was in Tampa visiting with my friends. And she said, let's get drinks. And I said, yeah, sure. Next time I'm up in D.C., I'll link up with you and your husband, and we'll go get drinks. Because she was married. And she said, well, I'm in Tampa, and I'm not married. Well, then, by gosh. I'll see you in a few minutes. So we met up that night and had drinks and caught up, and bam, from then on it's been that was what was that, April? She's gonna kill me if she ever hears this. I think that was April of 2015. Oh,
yeah, hopefully she doesn't listen. It seems like a lot of the things we talk about on here, hopefully the people they don't listen to it.
Yeah. But, yeah, she's going to listen. I guarantee you that. I went back home, and we had a long distance relationship while I was in Panama City. I was renovating the house I grew up in, and then she convinced me to move down here. I moved here in 2017, and I've been in Tampa ever since. At first, I just sat at home doing my woodworking. I'd gotten into woodworking and was building things, repairing things at her house, and just having a good time being retired. I get to do whatever I want to do. Like Al said, I never did get married. I never had any kids. So for me, every time I eat, I feed my whole family. And coming down here and moving in with her, she had 2 kids, a teenager and a 8-year-old at the time. And so that was a brand new experience for me, man. Walking straight into a house and going, you step from one day you're single, next day you got a family. So that was a huge change for me. But they made it easy because the kids are great. As she likes a clean house, and I don't mind keeping a clean house too. So that makes it really easy for us. But I did that for a few months where I was just working at the house, being retired. And I finally said, okay, I've got to do something. Now I'm bored. I've got to keep myself busy. And I started a Handy Vet home repair and made my website. I mean, I jumped in over my head right off the bat and built a website and everything. And then I did that for 6 months. And I started that in June of 2018. And let me tell you, for 6 months, Amy got up there on next door, and she looked on there one day and she said, Derle, there's people on next door asking for a handyman. And from the next day, I got my first job, and I think that was January 3rd of 2018. From then until June, I could have worked 7 days a week and never had a day off. There was that much cotton picking work to be done, and I was loving it. I don't have a problem with work. Work is easy. You work as hard as you want to, and I don't mind doing the hard work. But I did that for 6 months, and I realized, wait a minute, this is a lot busier than I want to be as a retired guy. Come on now. So I had looked into doing home inspection, years before when I was at home when I first retired. And I ran into somebody and I misunderstood what they said. But lo and behold, I got a message on my computer one day that said, how everybody's tracking you on Facebook. And one of them ads popped up. It says, get your home inspector's license. And I called them up and I said, hey, let me ask you this. And then, what all do I have to do? They said, all you got to do is a 120-hour class online, and you meet the requirements for the state of Florida. So I took the class, and I started the class in June of 2018. Passed my test in August of that following August of 18, and got my license as a home inspector. And I changed the business name and the website from Handy Vet Home Repair to Handy Vet Inspections. and I've been going solid since 2018, being a home inspector. And I'll tell you the biggest thing that I tell the guys on social media that are out there asking the basic questions. The biggest thing, I was in the Army, Chad and Al will tell you, you don't ever believe what someone tells you. Go look it up and verify it for yourself. Because when you're working on aircraft, we've got the TMs that we have to follow, and you never. The rule is you don't ever memorize a TM. You've done it 50 times, but you still got to have the book open when you're doing a job, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So I'm huge on research. So for me, home inspections was easy, and I tell my clients if they ask me, "So what's your background?" I said, "Well, I worked on aircraft for 26 years, and believe me, learning anything about a home is not going to be anywhere as near as complicated as working on aircraft. None of mine ever fell out of the sky. Let's put it that way. That's what I tell them. And I have been I've been very successful as a home inspector here in the Tampa area, and I love it. I really do. I enjoy getting out there. I don't mind the hard work. Being from Florida, I don't mind the heat. And I was in an attic here a few months back this past summer, and I shot my laser thermometer. I shot it up at the roof deck in the attic, and the deck underside of the roof was 142 degrees, and the ambient temperature was 118 in the attic, and I had to go in there for about 30 minutes to get all my inspection done. So I don't mind it. It's just hard work, but it's something that's got to be done, and I do enjoy it. But a home inspector now in this area, in this market these days, it's crazy how much things are changing. And if you're not willing to stay on top of it with the research, you are not going to be successful.
Well, that's great that you were able to find some success, and kind of just, finding something you love to do too. Is there anything like you kind of do? I know issues pertaining to the military now that you're like trying to maybe solve. I think you're involved with UXO. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
No, Daryl's not involved.
Oh, he's not in. Are you involved with any kind of charities or anything like that to kind of help out veterans, or anything that maybe kind of comes to mind that you'd like to talk about?
Well, no, honestly, no. I'm a kind of a lone wolf out there. I don't have a problem helping anybody whatsoever. Everybody has their own issues, the way that they deal with it, and there's a lot of different resources out there. If someone calls me, man, believe me, I'm going to be there if they need it. Al called me a few years back for a job venture. Said he needed some help with something out there in the hillsides of Kentucky, and I was there. 2 days later, Al?
Yes, sir. You sure were.
I was there 2 days later. My 4-wheeler in the back of the truck, my dog in the back in the truck with me. But no, I'm not involved directly with any of the veteran resources out there, or charities or anything like that. I don't have anything against them. I'm just a one-man band.
All right, we definitely understand that. I mean, it sounds like you still have close ties with a lot of the guys that you served with and stuff like that. So I'm sure that they, appreciate you talking to them and things like that. Still, I mean, because having that, even though you might be one-man band, you still will drop everything to help those guys out, and you gotta love to hear that. Well, I think we've been running quite long here in this episode, guys. I think that about concludes everything. I mean, unless you have anything else to say, maybe.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Knowing Al and Chad as long as I have, and serving with those guys. I mean, you can't ask for a better group of guys to call brothers out there. And to be able to have the camaraderie after service, that means more than anything out there. To know that you got somebody that you can actually call if you need to. And actually, these guys know me, and to have somebody that knows you that well, and Al knows how to push my buttons, doesn't he, Chad?
Yes, sir.
He knows what he's doing, but he can get you to talk. Let's put it that way. Al knows how to push buttons and get you to talk.
Don't I know it?
and that's the thing too, is to have somebody out there you can actually call. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, is to find that person out there. But the thing for me, going back throughout my entire career, like you said, I was married to the Army. had I not gotten my head in the right spot before I retired, I wouldn't be as successful as I am right now. I'd still be worried about, what I could do. I was a command sergeant major in the Army. I tell everybody, I said, it only made E9, but if they made E10, if they had an E10, I'd have made it too. But because I was always pushing myself to go the farthest I could possibly go. I was supposed to retire, and when I was a first sergeant, and my daddy said that was at 21 years, and Daddy said, I told Daddy on leave, I said, I'm gonna go ahead and retire here this next year, and he said, you still got farther, you got more you can do. I said, well, yeah, but it's not something I'm looking to do right now. I don't think that's what I want to go for in the Army. And he said, I want you to do as much as you can. And I knew what he was doing. And I said, you really want me to, Daddy? And he said, yep, I want you to go as far as you possibly go. So I decided to stay in the Army, and then I wound up going another 5 years after that because the choices that I made and the success that I had. But my successes were only I was only as successful as those I surrounded myself with, and that's what people don't realize. You are only as successful as those that you surround yourself with. Find competent people that give a shit about what they're doing, that truly have a passion for doing things right, and that right there will make you successful as well. So I will end it with that.
Definitely a great way to end it. A little nugget of wisdom to help out people. Because I agree. I think that a lot of people don't realize, they hang out with their buddies and stuff like that, and their buddies aren't. Not to say that you should be looking for buddies that are just doing something for you, but they should all have kind of the same direction, for sure, and be supportive of one another and be pushing each other. And I think that's the friend group you have to have around you. That's for sure. But we appreciate your time today, Derle. I mean, excellent talk to you. I mean, went very long here. I mean, hopefully a lot of the podcast episodes we do here from here on out are going to be a lot like this, where we just keep on talking. And we, love that Chad jumped in here with us to talk with us. And also, definitely thanks to Big Al, and appreciate everybody out there tuning in. My name is Brian Britt. Make sure you tune in next time on Fall In.